At the right time. No one has the news covered like SABC News. We lead and they follow. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Watching Newsroom on SABC News. A warm welcome from us here in Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm Eben Jansen. This show, of course, broadcasts live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights are then repeated at 2 in the afternoon with a rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every weekday with the entire show available on our YouTube channel all of the time. So you can watch it at your leisure anywhere in the world. Well, today we take a look at the legalization of marijuana for medical purposes here in South Africa, and of course Cape Town is the design capital of the world, and the Design Guild launches in that city later this year. We'll have a look at that as well. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. A ruling on broadcasting the murder trial of Oscar Pistorius will be made by the Pretoria High Court today. Several media houses have asked for permission to film the proceedings. The trial starts on Monday. Pistorius is accused of killing his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, at his home on Valentine's Day last year. Pistorius' legal team opposed the application, arguing that broadcasting the events would lead to an unfair trial. The Metal Workers Union NUMSA is planning to strike on the 19th of next month to demand jobs for the youth. The union had originally applied to march tomorrow. The same day, Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan will present his budget to Parliament. The union will instead hold a demonstration outside Parliament tomorrow. The United States, the European Union and the United Nations have slammed Uganda's anti-gay laws. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni signed a bill yesterday that punishes gay sex with up to life in prison. He said the law was needed because the West was promoting homosexuality in Africa. Now to our top story here today. The use of medical marijuana has once again sparked debate around cancer. After cancer-stricken Inkatha Freedom Party member in Parliament, Mario Oriani tabled legislation to decriminalise the medical use of marijuana in South Africa last week. What he calls a simple bill will enable doctors to make decisions with respect to terminal cases of cancer and other diseases. Now, the decriminalisation of medical marijuana is not a new argument, and this morning, well, we speak to the head of healthcare and life sciences at Worksman's attorneys, Neil Kirby, to tell us a little bit more about the legal route. And then from cancer, we have Professor Michael Herbst with us as well to tell us about the other processes involved, which involves health. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
Let me start with you, Professor Herbst, around the issues of health and the announcement that was made in Parliament last week by Mr. Ambrosini. You've taken issue with that announcement, haven't you?
Well, the issue is that I think we are giving the wrong message to the public. Because if I listened correctly to what Mr. Ambrosini said, but first let me say, I really laud him for bringing this message to us and that we can actually discuss the topic. But he brought a wrong message to the people, and he was referring to medicinal marijuana as treating of cancer and other conditions. And he referred and said, Mr. President, for people like me. And there's no scientific foundation for stating that marijuana or medicinal marijuana can be used in the treatment of cancer or any other condition.
In some instances, people believe that it doesn't have to be tested, but, you know, when you suffer a terminal illness, it's as much about comfort as it is about treatment.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe, and I've got experience with this, that when people are told you've got cancer, for many of them it's like a death sentence. And people get desperate, and they will grab at anything to live longer, to live better. Yeah. But we've got sufficient medicines in this country at very reasonable cost that can do exactly what cannabis is claimed to be able to do for one.
That's a point of conjecture, and we're going to come back to that a little bit to discuss it with you a little bit further, Professor. But I want to get the legal position out of the way with you, Mr. Kirby. If you can tell us, how do you see this playing out legally over the weeks, months, and years to come?
I think it's going to be an interesting debate, and I think that's going to be the focus of the legal process. As our laws pass through Parliament, most of the processes that are followed by Parliament concentrate on public participation, primarily because that's what our law requires of Parliament, to engage with the public on the laws that it's passing. So the process will be one where Parliament at almost every point will have to engage with the public, both interest groups, non-governmental organizations and members of the public who have something to add or say to the debate about legalizing marijuana.
Where do you stand on this debate?
It depends what you're going to do with the marijuana. The issue here is, and I agree with the professor, one has to be exceptionally careful about promoting legislation with the term medical marijuana in it.
Yeah.
Just because you call something medical doesn't mean that it has any necessary healthcare effect. And one does need to be careful about pushing legislation through of this nature in circumstances where most of the evidence indicating the pros of marijuana is scant. And the cons are largely heaped against the pros at this point. So running into a legislative process with this type of bill, I think we have to proceed very, very carefully.
What about the rights of the individual to make the choice? Even in the US, which is known to be a very conservative country, 3 states, it's now been legalized. And the right of choice, which is enshrined in the Constitution, surely that should supersede everything else. And the choice must be left to the individual to decide, in this case, what kind of medical treatment they want to take, whether it's marijuana or whether it is some drug peddled by a chemist anywhere else in the country.
One has to be careful about rights and choices. Firstly, in the United States, they have a very different way of approaching rights. In our country, you certainly have a right to choose the way in which you would like to obtain your healthcare services. That right is, however, not an infinite right. It is one that is curtailed by the law. It is set out in the National Health Act, and it is very carefully written down and prescribed. So it's not a matter of you choosing anything you like. It's a matter of you choosing what is currently available within the context of regulation and our healthcare system.
So you're saying that end of life, I'm a terminal patient, I'm about to die, I still have to, in my mind, apply the letter of the law.
That is the way the law works. The law works from the law applies to you from the time that you are born to the time that you die. And those decisions that you make must comply with the law. The consequences are the ones you suffer.
Until it's changed in
Sure.
Parliament, of course.
Sure.
Let's talk about the alternatives. You mentioned a little bit earlier the alternatives that's available to the use of medical marijuana.
Yes. Let's first just quickly look at the research that is done. You know, if you go to PubMed, it's the world's largest database of medicinal, medical and scientific literature, researched, peer-reviewed. Over 23 million research articles, and not a single one talks about the treatment of cancer or any other condition by using medicinal marijuana or marijuana straight. Yes, there are quite a number of articles there that will tell you that it has been tested and it helps to alleviate pain, it stimulates the appetite
and the mood,
and maybe a change in mood. But we've got cheaper medicine already available on prescription that is available for use. Why go this other route?
Why not? Why not give people the choice? Surely, at the end, it's about choice and about what you... I think the misconception is people think that marijuana is only for smoking. What about those people that want to drink marijuana tea and that really works for them and really makes them feel better if you are sort of suffering from a terminal disease?
Yes, you're quite right that people do eat and drink it. But if we look at the United States of America, in the states where marijuana has been decriminalized and legalized, the incidence of admission of children under the age of 9 years has risen by 30% because of ingestion marijuana through cookies and salads.
Yeah, but surely that is negligence on the part of the parents. One can't hold an entire nation accountable for that because of negligence on the part of parents.
Oh, you know, I don't want to lower the status of our own country, but if this happens in the leading country in the world, imagine what could happen in South Africa, where we have many more people who are not as sophisticated in, you know, being able to manage their household properly. How many children's lives are we going to really destroy?
I think that's. I don't think that's an argument that we should consider. In the end, it's like saying you shouldn't have a poison to kill rats in your house because your children could consume it. I don't think that's a relevant argument. But let's go to the announcement by Mr. Ambrosini in Parliament last week, where he spoke about the decriminalisation of marijuana for medical and industrial purposes could be a huge opportunity for the country. Would you agree with that?
I'm sure that it probably would be. I think that there's a huge economy around marijuana. I think that if one considers that marijuana needs to be grown, it needs to be cultivated, it needs to then be processed, packaged, distributed. You know, there is an entire economy around something like marijuana. But then again, there's an entire economy around any innovative medical treatment or any innovative medical investigation. So yes, I suppose there would be opportunities. But that having been said, one would need to explore as part of the bill-making process the socio-economic effects of what this means for us. We have to look very carefully at this.
Fortunately, we've got international benchmarks, not just in the US, I think, in other countries, where the crime rates have come down, and there have been positive spin-offs from that. But let's move back to the medicinal part of it. I'd like you to tell us cancer's official position on this, and where would you like to see this discussion go in the months to come?
Well, I think it's very important that this matter be discussed. And I can tell you the Minister has what is referred to as the Ministerial Advisory Committee on Cancer. And I am sure that when the committee met, because they met last week, I'm sure that this was definitely on their agenda. I've no privy to the agenda, but I'm sure it's there because the President said, Mr. Minister, I want you to have a look at this.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was discussed, and I think it will be very interesting to hear what will come out of that discussion and what advice will be given to the Minister. Yes, I think we must talk about it, but it's got to be very, very well done and thought through before we take any decisions.
Sober minds in Parliament, then, is the irony, isn't it?
Well, preferably. It would be worthwhile, I think, and I agree, having the debate. I think we need to talk about this. Primarily, I think, to debunk a lot of what people think about marijuana, and also then to have a proper look at this issue. If there is something in it that assists with South African healthcare needs, then we can look at how to control that. If there isn't, then let's move on to the next thing and concentrate our efforts properly.
What is cancer's position on the following? Which is worse, marijuana or alcohol?
I think the one is as bad as the other. We know the various links between alcohol abuse and various forms of cancer, and I'm not now even referring to some of the other conditions that could result from it as well. And the same can be said for marijuana. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but if we speak to those people, they will be able to tell us more about the long-term effects of the use of marijuana.
I want to talk about the possible threats and negative consequences if the bill is not drafted properly. What do you see play out?
Well, if the bill is not drafted properly and we miss the intention of what is required here, if the intention is to place medicinal marijuana into our healthcare system, if that is the intention, and what happens is that the bill has the effect of widening its scope, so that it decriminalizes and basically legalizes marijuana in all its forms, in every possible mode, in everybody's hands. Then I think we're in for a bit of a problem, because then it goes way beyond issues of healthcare. Then it goes into our society. Now, are we as a society now ready to cope with the use of marijuana in public spaces or in private spaces.
Yeah.
We've already had a huge move to control the use of tobacco in public spaces.
Yeah.
Are we now going to say that, well, notwithstanding our societal fixation with tobacco, we're going to do this? We're going to ignore marijuana?
I think we have sort of international benchmarks in the likes of European countries and in the US, where it's very much a confined scenario where it's controlled areas where it can be used. So that would obviously be a consideration then for you as well, if that was the case.
Yes, I think, we can look at some other countries. I mean, for instance, Holland, how they have managed their marijuana situation. But I wouldn't like to see South Africa being the marijuana mecca of the world, and that we start marijuana tourism with all its social implications that is possible.
Don't you think we're heading into a space in the 21st century where you would not be unique as a country if marijuana was legal within your borders, especially now if we look at the situation in the US?
No, absolutely you're not unique. I mean, Uruguay has it legalized. Colorado, Washington, the Netherlands. Decriminalization is rife around the world.
Yeah.
But that, I think, is no excuse for proper regulation.
Yeah.
So, yes, I accept that this may be a simple bill in relation to its length. I think it's 4 pages. But I think that underneath this simple bill is going to be a very dense set of regulation.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's a discussion that we could have for an entire hour, I would think.
Absolutely.
But Professor Michael Herbst from Cancer, thank you for your insights. And
thank you for being here.
And Neil Kirby from Worksman's Attorneys, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Moving on, the police have been deployed at 5 schools in Manenberg on the Cape Flats to protect pupils from gang violence. The Western Cape provincial government was forced to deploy the guards following a court order granted last week.
Being a child in Manenberg means living in fear. For many, like these grade 5 learners from Edenvale Primary School, running gun battles between gangs is an almost everyday occurrence.
It doesn't matter what the people tell them. They won't stop. We can't do anything. The only thing we can do is stay in our houses to stay safe.
At Silverstream High School, learner attendance is the highest in recent months at 69%. Of great concern, however, is the change in learner attitudes, as many imitate gang behavior and language.
I think it becomes better. It was quite low, very low. It took quite a bit of effort to get it where it is today. In terms of the teacher attendance, we've had quite a number of them absent over the last couple of weeks.
The Manenberg Teachers Steering Committee wants the provincial department to ensure safety at schools.
We believe that armed guards will serve as a deterrent to the gangsters that run up and down the roads here and that run across the schools and jump the school fences. Definitely I feel that it will be a deterrent to them because they won't take those chances anymore.
It's up to the community to work together with the security agencies to make sure that these gangs are not present in communities because they put their lives as well as the future of their children at risk.
Mariska Botha, SABC News, Manenberg.
Now, business confidence of the South African small, medium and micro enterprises, SMMEs as they are known here, the sector declined during the fourth quarter of 2013, with the overall business confidence index decreasing from 49.8% during the third quarter of 2013 to 36.2% in the fourth quarter. Broadly, the numbers are saying that confidence in the SMME sector is very low and has been low now for a number of years. Now, to explain this all to us is Professor Nicholas Bigper from the Africa Growth Institute, who joins us from Cape Town. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning to your listeners as well.
Professor, just tell us, what are the key reasons for confidence being so low?
The key reasons are to do with the wider economy. If you look at South Africa, for instance, and compare that to other emerging markets, small business play a very central role. I mean, if you look back, some of us are not old enough to remember that, but if you look at Japan, after the Second World War, and then Germany, the thing that took these countries out of poverty, if you remember during the war, these countries were totally destroyed, was small business. They had cooperatives, groups, working schemes. In this country, after 1994, we didn't pay a lot of attention to that. So since we've taken this survey since 2006, we've realized that small businesses are languishing below the 50% perception index. So it's to do with the wider economy. It's to do with the conditions that the wider economy places on small business, like taxation. It's to do with other labor issues, related issues. It's to do with volatility in our currency market. It's to do with the export market, trade figures. So that filters through to small business. And you know, small businesses are very, very vulnerable. These are businesses that if you lose one key member, then they really knock themselves back very badly. So there are a lot of complex portfolio of things that are as a result of that.
In South Africa, we've got quite a few monopolies ruling the roost in business. What effect does that have on small business, and then the high cost of doing business? You know, things like broadband and so forth, collusionary tactics by monopolies and so forth. Does that have a big effect on small business and the reason why confidence in small business is so low?
It has a major effect. I mean, if you are a major bank, a major retail outlet, you get maybe more than half of preferential treatment when telephone companies or the broadband companies are dealing with you. If I run my corner shop in my garage, I don't have that. So the treatment that small business is given, and that's not only just, if I can mention, even from the government side, I'm not suggesting that the government is targeting small business, but the condition that they've created and the monopolies have created make it very difficult for small business to operate. I run a small business, and I probably can tell you from experience, it's not easy to get a loan from a bank. But if you are, a major organization, it's easier to get these kind of facilities. So that plays a very important role.
How do we go forward from here, and how do we replicate the miracles of a Japan and a Germany post-World War II?
I think we need to, our educational system, when I say education, I really even don't mean academic education, but our entrepreneurial educational system. If you remember, that needs to be overhauled to place business as a profession. Now, when I say profession, most people, when they finish school, they want to work for major banks. They want to work for the major outlets. Nobody ever thought of going to start their own business and run. I think we need to change that. And also maybe we need to look around us. If you look at around other countries around the continent, you go to Kenya, you go to Ghana, you go to Nigeria, and there is nothing like people unemployed because you have to get a living, you have to survive. So the entrepreneurial kind of culture starts at a very early age. We don't have that here. And I think the government needs to look at it the same way that when there's war, they train people to go and fight. I think we need to tackle it that way. So the people, the awareness that we don't have to work for the major organization. Young people coming can start their own projects with support from government and other agencies to see them forward.
So it's about education and empowerment in the end.
It's about education and empowerment. It's also about trying to let people understand that if you go to the rural areas in most African countries is an area where business does thrive because people do sustainable farming. They do other things, they go into other ventures. Our areas now is more or less, rural areas are not a place where people consider they can get jobs. So what happens, people move to the cities, and when you come to the city, again, they don't start their own businesses. They start looking for jobs. So the culture of education on entrepreneurship is not distributed evenly around the country. So I think the government needs to pay attention to that.
Professor Bigpe, thank you for joining us this morning. That's Professor Nicholas Bigpe, who, of course, joined us from Cape Town, and he's from the Africa Growth Institute, and he told us that, business confidence has once again, especially business confidence in small, medium, and micro enterprises, have taken a dip at the end of 2013, which is not good news for South Africa. Let's take a quick look at what you're talking about on social media. Of course, the buzz going around has been around the legalization of marijuana for medical or other purposes. What are your views? Antoinette Opperman says, so are you starting to clear a piece of your backyard just in case you'll be able to grow legal dagga? For those of you who don't know what dagga is, that's marijuana. For all of you in the rest of the continent in South Africa, we call it dagga. Let's legalize dagga, but don't smoke it anywhere in public. Respect us non-smokers and don't abuse it, based on your health, says Khosi Bokho Singh. Flo says, laugh out loud. Next time when I get caught with marijuana, I will claim to be a traditional healer. They say it's only legal for medical purposes. Yeah, everyone's having a little giggle at it. Of course, it's a very serious issue. Lunga says billions of revenue will be generated when marijuana is legal. At the moment, most of the revenue is, of course, illegal, and well, we don't see the benefits of it. We don't see infrastructure being built around it. So, really, it is a discussion that we should escalate. At SABC Newsroom, that's where you find the show. And you can interact with us and tell us your thoughts. Send us pictures if you want to. We want to interact with you. This is Newsroom. We'll be back after a short break.
Sometimes a lot of people, in fact, do not have access, firstly, to palliative care. Secondly, even if they do,
So what? Do we just kill them if they don't have access to palliative care?
I think she's actually crucifying my question, with all due respect.
If you actually actively assist somebody to die, then you are convicted of murder.
Who should take the burden of terminating a life?
It's very problematic for doctors to play God.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
Gaming enthusiasts, including us here at Network, indulged in over 80 exhibits that included the Xbox One and Nintendo. Visitors also got to try out PlayStation 4 computer entertainment system, which was unveiled at Rage 2013.
I just came here to see the Xbox One and the PS4, see which one I'd buy.
If you have close to 400,000 Rand to spare, then you can buy the new UHD TV set. Samsung has launched cheaper models, but cheaper doesn't necessarily mean cheap. South Africa has just received the country's first surgical robot, but the robot isn't quite taking over from your surgeon just yet.
That's Network, Sundays, 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Corporate crime is the scourge of business here in South Africa, and it seems to be getting worse. PricewaterhouseCoopers released its annual Global Economic Crime Survey to the media last week. It exposed the shocking prevalence of economic crime starting companies right here in South Africa and are hit more by fraud, bribery and corruption than their global counterparts. Now, to discuss the matter further, we are joined by the Managing Director of iFacts in Cape Town, Jenny Reid. Good morning, Jenny. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Jenny, worrying numbers came out of the survey last week. How widespread is corporate crime within the South African business sector?
Terrifying statistics have come out, and it is extremely widespread in the corporate environment that we work in South Africa. And obviously going through into Africa, but the South African statistics are reaching alarming proportions.
And Jenny, tell us, what type of economic crimes are then the most prevalent in South Africa?
The fraud and corruption that we're seeing, the tender fraud, is just absolutely frightening. And unfortunately, there's no example led by government. So we're reading about people getting away with these kinds of crime on a regular basis. So it's becoming accepted, and very little is being done to deal with the issue in the workplace.
Jenny, tell us about the balance checks, the checks and balances that's done through accountants and auditors, and the kind of screening that happens in South Africa. Is it adequate?
You know, auditing is great and there's great practices, international standards are there, but auditing is very often a reactive situation. So we audit issues from the past and those things have already happened. What we need to do more of is we need to get people to be proactive in terms of dealing with crime and corruption. So we need to ensure that the right people are employed, the right integrity tests are done, the right verification so we know who is coming into the workplace. And exactly as we do that with employees, contractors, etc., we should be looking at that from a procurement point of view as well, to know that the people who are putting tenders in are genuinely the people who are going to be offering the service. And it's not a whole cover-up to either get a family member, a friend or such into the organisation, take the money and not be able to deliver the service.
Is corruption part of the business culture in South Africa?
Unfortunately, I will say yes.
And the percentages are alarming, you would say that as well, I would think.
Absolutely. They really are scary. And unless companies look within and take responsibility themselves to deal with the problem, it's not going to help. We can all sit here and say, government's corrupt, our neighbours are corrupt, our colleagues are corrupt. But unless we stand up and say, we're not going to deal with it, and in my company, I'm going to take responsibility, and I'm going to make sure that we have a zero tolerance policy, and this is how we're going to do it. You're not going to stop it, because we tend to sit there and say, it's happening here, it's happening there, so why don't we just do it as well and accept it? There's nothing that we can do. We need to stand up and be responsible.
Now, Jenny, this is a faceless crime. You don't always see the face of corrupt practice in business and elsewhere. Tell us about who are the fraudsters most often, and who are the victims in these sorts of crimes?
Well, it was interesting. The PwC survey that came out last week really reconfirmed the profile of a fraudster. And it's somebody sort of, unfortunately, often a male in his 30s to 40s, and has been in the workplace in a senior position for approximately 10 years. So it's somebody with qualifications, it's somebody who understands the business, and it's somebody who understands the systems and procedures. There's often a debate about there being a greater loss at a more senior level in an organisation. People tend to see the theft and that at a lower workforce level. But the more senior employees are actually exposed to a lot more, so the risk is far greater and the value of the crime is far greater.
Now we see the number also that only about 10% of these kinds of crimes end up in court with convictions and so forth. Why is this the case?
Well, there's two main reasons. The one is many private companies will be protecting themselves from a reputational point of view, because the damage that happens to a company when that hits the press is immense, and to measure that is huge. The cost of good publicity, we all know what that costs. So you can imagine the damage when there's bad publicity and the press gets hold of it. So from that point of view, a lot of people will deal with it quietly, maybe get rid of the person just quietly, sweep it under the carpet and carry on. The other problem is a lot of companies don't have any faith in the judicial system. It either there's corruption there, or it's just an inefficient system where people can't take these kind of matters forward. And it costs them a fortune to deal with it and go forward. And there's fear. If they're dealing with syndicates, those syndicates will come at the honest people trying to deal with it. So there's also the element of fear for the executives when they've uncovered it with employees in the workplace.
Thank you for joining us. The numbers are absolutely scary, Jenny, but thank you for giving us an insight into the scourge that is corporate or economic crime, and the numbers are a lot worse. This after a PW Sport report came out in this country last week. Let's take another look at what you are talking about on social media, what you're saying. Presley Machava saying, are people of Jansen really want to see Pistorius trial on TV? I think only the elite with DSTV would want that. I think everybody would like to see that, my friend. Libuani says this Pistorius case is going to be big moss. I see local journalists are being hunted on Twitter by foreign journalists for comment. Perhaps wanted, he says. Team Lexi says, I can't wait for the Oscar Pistorius trial to start on the 3rd of March. Justice must be served. Well, it seems that you have judged him already, my dear. Brigadier General says, I suspect the Oscar Pistorius saga will provide case studies for law and humanities faculties. Well, probably will, much like the O.J. Simpson trial did in the U.S. a decade or so ago. Remember Johnny Cochran? Who is going to be the Johnny Cochran that comes out of this trial? Well, after the break, we're going to be in Pretoria, and Francis Stimo is going to talk to us about the judgment that will be handed on the broadcasting of the Oscar Pistorius trial after a short break. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News.
This is the program in which we showcase different aspects of government.
The Northern Cape is a land of many diverse cultures, of frontier history and brave missionaries. It also has countless challenges.
Well, in the first instance, we used to be a province of diamonds. A lot of marriages and relationships were created because of DR. We may lose that sparkle this time, but what we're looking at is creating a rail cargo hub in the area because the economy there was dependent on rail.
More opportunities are being created each year to benefit all in the region.
This is a nation at work.
How do you think he actually works?
Get fully installed fixed-line broadband with modem and turn your home into a Wi-Fi hotspot. That's 5 gigs data plus 5 gigs promo data for just $3.99, including ADSL and line rental. Plus, you'll also get a free 3G dongle with 200 megabytes mobile data a month and loads more benefits for your new connected home. Rethink fixed broadband. Call, click, go to a Telkom store.
Zoom into Africa. This is Malawi. The president is Her Excellency Joyce Banda. Malawi got independent from the United Kingdom on 6th of July in 1964. The population is more than 15 million people. One of Malawi's major languages is English. Monetary unit Malawi Kwacha.
Welcome back. This is still Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a quick and final look at your news headlines. Ruling on broadcasting the murder trial of Oscar Pistorius will be made by the Pretoria High Court today. Several media houses have asked for permission to film the proceedings. The trial starts on Monday. Pistorius is accused of killing his girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp, at his home on Valentine's Day last year. Pistorius' legal team opposed the application, arguing that broadcasting the events would lead to an unfair trial. The Metal Workers Union, NUMSA, is planning to strike on the 19th of next month to demand jobs for the youth. The union had originally applied to march tomorrow, the same day Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan will present his budget to Parliament. The union will instead hold a demonstration outside Parliament tomorrow. The United States, the European Union and the United Nations have slammed Uganda's anti-gay laws. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni signed a bill yesterday that punishes gay sex with up to life in prison. He said the law was needed because the West was promoting homosexuality in Africa. Now let's look at the top story today. The public will know later whether they will be able to watch a live broadcast of Oscar Pistorius' trial on their television screens. That is, several media houses last week launched a High Court application to broadcast the proceedings live, subject to conditions, of course. Print media also applied for permission to take stills photos during the trial. The North Gauteng High Court will rule at 11 o'clock today. whether the media will cover the trial. Pistorius will stand trial for killing his model girlfriend Riva Steenkamp on Valentine's Day last year. The trial starts on Monday and is scheduled for 3 to 6 weeks. Now, Offensa Estimo joins us from Pretoria. Good morning, Offensa.
Good morning, Eben.
There must be a little bit of a buzz in the capital around the ruling today. Just tell us what's expected and how it will be dealt with today.
Well, basically, international and local media houses are actually expecting to hear the fate of their application to broadcast live the proceedings, as you mentioned, of Oscar Pistorius' trial. But what has come to our attention is that the leaking of that information where Oscar was allegedly browsing porn websites before the actual incident could actually compromise their case in order to broadcast. They mentioned earlier that they had reached an agreement with the prosecuting authority to beam the proceedings audio throughout the proceedings, but the prosecuting authority later on expressed disappointment after the leaking of those documents, saying that they were not signed by them and that they were not signed by Pistorius's legal team. Therefore, those things were leaked illegally, and they accused the media of actually being implicated in the leaking of those documents. So this might actually compromise their case to actually be able to broadcast that case globally. Pistorius's lawyers also mentioned that this could actually be a recipe for one of those trials where it's an unfair trial. They were saying that the witnesses and Riva Steenkamp's family and experts were feeling rather a bit uncomfortable with the knowledge that their testimony would actually be broadcast globally.
And let's talk about the preparations at courtside already. I saw some of my friends in the media, they're renting flats across the road from the High Court. Space is going to be at a premium. It's going to be a bit of a circus, isn't it?
Yes, there's actually going to be a hive of activity as well there, because they were also mentioning that motorists should actually divert and use other roads instead of using the road that passes the North Gauteng High Court there, as it's going to be very hectic. It's very hectic. It's going to be a hive of activity where media houses will be outside. You are right, some buildings next to the court have actually been rented out just so they could actually get some exclusive view of the court itself as the proceedings get underway. So it's true, it's actually going to be extremely hectic in the city centre.
Fancy, is there any other news coming out the capital? 30 seconds.
The other story that we're actually looking at is the celebration of the life of Professor Mbulelo Mzamane, whom the former South African President Nelson Mandela expressed, who he was defined as a visionary leader and one of the greatest intellectuals. So he passed away recently. So the Arts and Culture Department will be celebrating his life. So that's one of the other stories that we'll actually be tracking from the capital city.
Interesting. Thank you, Francis Timo. That's our man in the capital, Francis Timo, giving us an update what you can expect out of the capital today. Of course, now we're going to hand over to our producer, Katrine Milan, who is standing by with more on the Guild International Collectible Design Fair that launches in Cape Town this week. Katrine.
Thank you, Eben. Africa's first ever Guild International Design Fair will launch on Thursday night in Cape Town, presenting at the beginning of the World Design Capital of 2014. It will not only aim to bring the design world to Africa, but will also be a platform for local established designers. The fair will explore the theme of making on an elevated collectible level. Now today in our Cape Town studio, we are joined by the fair's featured designer, Nacho Carbonell. And in studio with me, we are joined with Guy Guilfoyle from BMW South Africa, one of the sponsors of the event. Firstly, Nacho, very welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
And Guy, very welcome to you too.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Nacho, I would like to start with you. Can we start off with a bit of your background, where your love for design started, where you were born?
Well, I'm originally from Spain. I think my love for design, I think looking back, it has been always there. Actually, I remember myself in my childhood as a very, very bad student. But I understood, actually, while I was reading my notebooks, actually I was not reading what it needed to be read, or the day after in the exam, for the day after in the exam. Actually, what I was doing, I was playing with all kind of objects that I had around, just it could be a paper clip or whatever. So forming already kind of like the basics for the future of my career.
Now, Nacho, can you explain to us your work that you will be exhibiting at the Guild and just the type of materials you like using?
Well, I'm very eager actually to use all kind of materials, always trying to explore these new possibilities by using different materials. At the Guild, we are presenting actually Playground, Closet at Dusk, where actually the exploration goes through a lot of metal, glass and bronze. And especially for this special occasion, actually we are covering one of the pieces with Flisco textiles to kind of like add kind of like a story into the whole body of work.
Now, Guy, I would like to get back to you here in Johannesburg. Can you tell me more about BMW's involvement in the Guild Design Fair and then as well as your involvement with Nacho's work?
Well, our involvement actually goes one step further back, is that we're the official vehicle partner to World Design Capital as well. We have been for a number of years. We did Helsinki last year and Tokyo the year before. In terms of the work with Nacho, we're putting together a garden courtyard. And we use the theme of a garden. Obviously, a playground closes after dusk. A playground's usually some sort of garden. So we've built a garden out of indigenous plants to showcase Nacho's work in. From our perspective, Nacho being designer of the future is a great thing for our brand. Very futuristic brand. We always look to the future. We're launching the range of BMW i3 and i8 cars later this year. Probably the most futuristic cars to hit the road, made out of new materials, and something that Nacho's
I wanted to ask you, like,
using.
how do you bring car and collectible design? How do you bring it all together?
It's been part of our heritage for many, many years, you know, and Nacho will know this well. Since the 70s, BMW has been doing a range of BMW art cars. And we've had famous artists like Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, Frank Stella, Alexander Calder design pieces of moving art that raced on a racetrack, usually Le Mans. So art has always been a very big part of our design ethos, and certainly it's something we try and bring through in our cars today. They really are moving sculptures at the end of the day.
Nacho, I want to come back to you. Can you tell me a bit more about the highlights of your career so far? I see you were named Designer of the Future by Design Miami in 2009.
Definitely. This has been a very important step also in my career. But we shouldn't forget about actually like how I achieved that title. That is thanks to the visibility that I acquired, thanks to great names as Lee Edelcourt that just picked me up very early in my career. Basically, just recently graduated and give me the right visibility to later on also be picked up as gallerist Rosanna Orlandi, also showing this year at Guild. That actually, thanks to these strong pillars, actually, I managed to achieve what I achieved today.
Nacho, have you been in South Africa before?
No, it's my first time, actually. Very excited about it.
Are there any local South African designers you look forward to meeting at the Guild?
Actually, even though I did like my research, I will not like to point right now at any of them. I would like to kind of like get surprised, and actually I'm looking very much forward for some studio visits that we are going to be doing to some of the designers, and actually see and explore what and how they do the things here.
Now, Guy, I just want to talk in general, BMW South Africa. Where are you guys? Where's the future taking you guys?
So, I mean, you know, we've been here for 41 years, Katrine. This is our the start of our 5th decade in the country. We're the leading premium car manufacturer in the world and in South Africa. And this year is a very exciting year for us. We've got a great raft of new product, some of which we'll showcase alongside Nacho's exhibition, the new BMW 4 Series Coupe, for example. But the really exciting news is the range of BMW i cars coming towards the end of the year. As I've said earlier, made completely out of carbon fiber, cars designed for sustainability from the ground up, and we believe that they'll revolutionize the way the world thinks about cars.
Now, what are your expectations for the Guild Design Fair now launching on Thursday?
I'd really like to see South Africans come out and support these artists who put in so much time and effort to produce these unbelievable works. I think as South Africans we're a little bit removed from the amazing design work in general that goes on in the world. Of course, we know what happens on the local design front. But I'd really like to see them come out, appreciate the amazing work of these artists. And of course, the fact that our brand's aligned to this is obviously see our brand in the same light.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for joining us. And Nacho, thank you for joining us in Cape Town. I look forward to seeing your designs on Thursday.
Thank you very much. I hope very much looking to see you here.
Okay. Thank you so much. And we're handing back to Eben, who will say goodbye.
Well, that's where we wrap it, Kratoon. Thank you very much. Of course, this show broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. highlights. Repeated at 2 in the afternoon. The rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube between 9 and 10 every weekday morning with the entire show available on our YouTube channel all the time, so you can watch it at your leisure anywhere in the world. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.